Hello students, with extreme care I'm making this video because I always try to make you feel as calm and as happy, but unfortunately as world events have gone on, things are escalating quickly, and I thought it would be prudent to make a video talking about what we know about how to survive radiological attack. And so, again, my apologies about this, but I think it's better to have more information than less at your disposal when you're working with this. So, a couple things. So, if there is a nuclear war, there's a couple things you want to do. First of all, yeah, obviously you want to survive, and I have some fallout. So I'll show you. I'll go through the FEMA guide in a second, but an atomic blast a lot of times has like a mushroom-shaped cloud, and then depends on if this is via a ground burst. So either you explode the weapon close to the surface or you explode it up in the air. The ground burst can have more fallout, and the fallout happens depends on. It's a problem with this. It's such contextual knowledge. Fallout can be very fast. In Hiroshima, when we bombed Hiroshima, the fallout cloud seeded some rain, and it really contained the radiation in an area, but the people that got rained on got a huge dose of radiation. So it can be very fast in the order of a half an hour to even 2 hours after the blast. And what you're trying to do for you is for a survival. You're trying to get under 100 rem. So rem is a how much radiation. That's a measure of how much radiation, and I'm not going to go too much into this, but we usually don't have any physiological effects to radiation until we reach about 20 rem. And around 50 rem to 200 rem, you can start to have gastrointestinal issues, so nausea, vomiting, kind of thing. And around 100 rem, you get radiation sickness. You can get radiation sickness at lower than 100 rem, though. Around 60 rem, typically patients' hair starts to fall out. So you can have your hair fall out and not get radiation sickness. But it really just depends on the individual and in the circumstance. For instance, a whole body dose is going to be different than if you get hit in your abdomen, right? So because the nausea will happen more quickly, for instance. So it really just depends. But the your goal is afterwards to stay under 100 rem, so you don't get radiation sickness. And because radiation sickness, it's what this is, so radiation just breaks chemical bonds, okay? So it's high energy photons or high energy particles, and it just tears chemical bonds apart, and the damage just comes from that on a molecular level, and your body's cells have damage on a molecular level, and if it's too much, then you can have certain effects. And the areas of our body that are infected the most tend to be our eyes, our stomach, and our hair follicles, because they divide very quickly. So they're the ones that tend to get hit hard the most as far as physiological responses to radiation. So eyes maybe a little less, but you can get some cataracts or temporary blindness issues from after a nuclear detonation. So that's what a fallout is, and that's your target. So let's say you're out in the open and there is a nuclear event. So there'll be a bright flash of light, and then depending on your distance, there's going to be a shock wave. So the flashlight might blind you. What you should do is drop to the ground as fast as you can. Try and, if you can, go somewhere low, like in a ditch or something, just to get as much matter between you, and anything else is the best you can do. If you're in a car and you're driving, pull over the side of the road, stop the vehicle, and lie down in your vehicle as much as you can. And then what's going to happen next is there's going to be a pressure wave. Okay, so there'll be pressure wave depending on your distance. It could be a second or a few seconds afterwards. But the lower you are to the ground, the less it's going to affect you because of fluid mechanics. Okay, so when you get close to the surface, anything, the flow becomes laminar or very, very predictable. Anywhere above that, it's going to be turbulent, and it's due to fluid mechanics and what we know about pressure. It's just the closer you are to the ground, the safer, the less damage you're going to have. The other thing you should do is you open up your mouth. Keep your mouth open, because if you close your mouth, it might rupture your eardrums. It might still rupture your eardrums, but it's better to have your mouth open so your eardrums have a less of a chance of being ruptured. And then after the pressure wave comes a thermal fireball, and then there's going to be heat damage depending on your distance to where you're at from this. It depends on how big the detonation is and what your distance is, how much of the thermal damage you're going to have, and that's going to cause not to just to living creatures but also to structures. So, and then after that, seek shelter immediately as soon as you so surviving the initial blast, and then seek shelter as soon as you can. So seeking shelter, and I'm going to go to the FEMA guide now. So seek shelter, and I'll show you some of the stuff about the shelter. I'm going to go through some of this and show you some better pictures than mine. So, and yeah, here's the different types of bursts. So if you want to look at this document. And so where the distance is, and this is based off of a 10 kiloton detonation. That's half the size of the bombs we put on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So these would be in the tactical nuke range. Russia has bombs up to 100 megatons. The Tsar Bomba, that of course is going to be 10,000 times as strong as this. But the idea for survival is the same, and you're still going to have a range of severe damage here, moderate damage, light damage, and then less. And so this would be 3 miles beyond the epicenter. Even for a very large nuke, if you're 10 miles beyond, you're probably going to be okay. A word of caution, though, there's maybe you've heard of the rule of thumb, where you holding up your thumb to that comes from an outdated idea that if your thumb covers the mushroom cloud, then you're fine. That could be true, it could not. It's just contextual. It depends on the wind. So it also it depends. You may not be safe still. Even if you're in that situation, I would still seek shelter. And so this just goes to different types of ranges. And one of the nice things, if you have an airburst, there tends to be less fallout. So, and you can see the different size of bombs that you have here that has the various fallouts. And okay, here's a mushroom cloud. This is for 3.5 kiloton explosion, but you can see the characteristic mushroom cloud. And then this is what the fallout is. It's going to be tiny particles that are very radioactive. And the radiation, it works by so it's better to have the air burst. Air burst causes more damage, but it causes less radiation. So I guess it depends on what you mean by which one is better. So, and here are the photographs of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Okay, so this is what I was going for. This chart also illustrates something called the law of 7 tens. So, looking at this chart here, so for every 7 hours, so having the law of 7 tens. So if it starts off at 1,000 rem per hour, and then after 7 to the first hours, it's at 100 rem per hour. After 7 squared hours or 49 hours, about 2 days, you're down to 10 rem an hour. And then so 7 cubed is going to be it's going to be about 2 weeks, and 7 to the 4th, this is going to be about 6 weeks. So 2 weeks is going to be 1 rem per hour, and then this is going to be 0.1 rem per hour then after 6 weeks. So that's, again, the law of 7/10. So you can see it's an exponential decay function. So going back to this, it's exponentially decaying, which means that, and that's why I mean seek shelter as soon as you can, the radiation dose is really high. So which means at 1,000 rems per hour, you can get radiation sickness, very quickly. So so that would, you're talking like, less than 10 minutes in this exposure. And if you're there for 40 minutes, you probably received a lethal dose, maybe even less than that. So it's really important that you get shelter as soon as you can. And those first 7 hours are critical. So the first 7 hours, as much as you can do to get into a shelter as soon as you can. And then for the next 7 squared to 2 days, you want to stay inside as well, and respond to the civil defense. If they tell you to evacuate, you should follow them, because they might know more about where the wind is blowing and that kind of thing. Oh, and another thing, so all these things as far as the timing for explosions, it restarts if there's a new detonation. That's another thing about seeking shelter, is that there might be more than one blast. So it might not just be one weapon being thrown at you, there might be several. So that's another reason to seek shelter, because there could be another detonation going on. So, and another thing to expect from a nuclear detonation, I forgot to mention this, is something called an EMP, electromagnetic pulse. So that destroys electronic equipment. So it depends on the air bursts are going to have a longer EMP. The ground bursts are going to have less of an EMP. It just depends, but that's something to note, that your electronic equipment may not work. So keep that in mind. If it doesn't work, that is going to be one of the indications that a nuclear weapon had been detonated. And so that as far as when it's safe to leave, so if you're in your shelter, the first 7 hours are the most critical. The next up to 2 days afterwards, you really should stay inside as much as you can. Stay inside as long as you can, actually. After 48 hours, and this is kind of my opinion, and it has to deal with what your situation is. This is when you need to decide whether or not to leave your shelter. So reasons to leave would be if someone is injured and really needs help, and you can't get help. In the first 7 hours, though, it's really probably better to stay as sheltered as you can, because the lethal dose can happen in 10 minutes or less. So in radiation sickness, maybe not lethal in 10 minutes, but it could be 20 minutes, half an hour. It just really depends on how much radiation is there. So you can really get hurt by not seeking shelter in that initial time frame. Also, to find food and water as much as you can. As terrible as it sounds, if you can seek shelter and just forego eating for 2 days, that will greatly increase your chance of survival, and then seeking food and other shelter afterwards. So this just shows these charts here shows typically where the fallout happens. These for ground bursts of various sizes of weapons. So you can see that that even for you're going to be way outside, and for a 10 kiloton blast, I think it was 4 or 5 miles was around the light damage. You can see that the dangerous radiation field can extend up to to not quite 50 miles, over 50 miles away. So you're looking at 54 miles, extending. So it's that's why shelter is very, very important. So and we can skip a lot of that. So I wanted to, here's the EMP pulse effects. I showed you the EMP pulse. So yeah. But let's see here. I wanted to show you the sheltering. So where is the shelter? And again, I'm sorry for having a scary topic like this, but it's better that more than knowing less. Oh, here we go. Shelter. And where is the picture? Here we go. This is one I want to show you. So and the best place to be. So if you have access to a basement, it's best to go in a basement. And so especially you can see your second basements, big buildings, these basements, you can decrease the amount of radiation by a factor of 200 if you're really far below. And the other place that's good is in the center of a building. So if you're wherever you're at for your shelter, try and the reason, just get as much matter between you and the outside as you can. So the more central area of your structure, especially that's down below, basements are great. The center of the basement's going to be the safest spot. If you don't have a basement, center of the structure, the most central spot in the house, or wherever it is you're going for, that is going to be the safest spot. And by central, I mean in whatever story you're at, and away from windows and the walls. So you want to stay in the center of the house as much as you can. So it's just 2 days. If you can do that for 2 days, it'll greatly increase your chance of survival. The other thing is you want to prevent ventilation. So this is not the time to open the windows. Keep your windows closed. If you have air conditioning, turn that off. Turn off whatever it is if you still have electricity, then turn off your heat. Just keep everything as slow moving as possible. This is when you don't want to breathe things in. And also, in my opinion, the radiation is more dangerous than COVID and other communicable diseases. So if you do not have the opportunity of social distancing, then just forego those rules and do as best you can. And because in my opinion, the radiation is more dangerous than the COVID. For myself, I would not want to have radiation sickness. So radiation sickness, it's going to cause nausea, vomiting, difficulty breathing. So it's going to be it's going to tie up medical personnel. So a lot of patients with radiation sickness require treatment. So the idea is to not be one of those people that requires treatment. So so that the people that are unfortunate that do require treatment, those individuals can get treatment. So you're really helping them as well for yourself to stay as well as you can. So, and I mean, with this knowledge also, it's situational. So I mean, pay attention and I mean, if you're really far away, something like that, then you can just jump in your car, just put shelter in place, but you have your car and it works and you can drive somewhere. Go ahead, just jump in your car and drive away. I mean, that's fine, kind of thing. And you're so it's, I mean, that's an example of something that you need to use as much common sense as you have available to you. But again, I'm sorry for such a dark and dreary topic, but I hope you found this enlightening. I'm mostly basing this talk off of the FEMA.gov document here, this for a nuclear detonation. So, and also my own personal knowledge. So if you have any questions, please let me know. But in the meantime, please take care. Aloha for now.